I just woke up in someone else's life, inside a novel I never even read. My girlfriend, or his girlfriend, I guess, is holding out a bundled up infant, her eyes glistening with tears. I'm still trying to get my bearings when a stream of comments, like a live chat feed, starts scrolling across my vision. Come on, dude, take the baby. You have to raise this kid on your own. Struggle through it all so that when the real dad shows up, the female lead will finally realize how much you truly love her. Classic secret baby plot. Only it's the guy who gets stuck with it. Talk about the ultimate simp move. OMG. I can't wait for the scene 5 years from now when the billionaire CEO returns and she comes crying back to you, begging for forgiveness. What are you waiting for, man? Take the kid. Staring at this insane feed, I pull out my phone and dial 911. I hit the speakerphone button right in front of her. Yeah, hello, police. Someone is trying to abandon a baby. To hell with being the fall guy. You want me to clean up your mess? How about you cool off in a jail cell first? Chapter 1. Leo, are you crazy? The tears on the face of my so-called girlfriend, Jess Miller, vanish, her pitiful expression instantly replaced by shock and disbelief. She lunges for my phone, but I sidestep her easily. A calm, professional voice comes from the speaker. 911, what's your emergency? Yes, officer. I'm at the Cypress Point Apartments, Building C, Unit 412. There's a woman here with a newborn infant, and she's trying to abandon it with me. That's right, I believe it's child abandonment. The color drains from Jess's face. She shrieks like a cornered animal. Now, you can't do this. This is our baby. Ours. I let out a cold laugh. Before hanging up, I add one more thing to the dispatcher. You should probably hurry. The woman is extremely agitated. I end the call and cross my arms, watching her with a detached calm. Jess, we've been together for a year. For 10 months of that year, I was embedded with a development team on an out-of-state project. So please, tell me how this baby, who looks barely a month old, is ours. The memories of the original owner of this body are still settling in, and my head is throbbing. The original Leo Vance was the textbook definition of a devoted doormat. A guy from a modest background who clawed his way into a top university and became a respected programmer in his field. He fell for Jess, the campus beauty, at first sight and chased her for 2 years before she finally agreed to go out with him. He gave her everything. His debit card, his paycheck. He scrimped and saved so he could buy her designer bags. Just when he thought he was the happiest man alive, Jess disappeared without a word. A month later, today, she showed up at his door with a baby. According to the original novel's plot, Leo was supposed to tearfully accept this premature child, quit his high-paying job, and raise the baby by himself while working odd jobs. 5 years later, the baby's real father, a domineering CEO named Connor Sterling, would descend from the heavens. Jess would cry that she had been forced, that Leo was the one she had always loved. Then, after a mountain of cheesy, melodramatic bullshit, the CEO would win back the girl and gain a son in the process. And Leo, the useful tool, having fulfilled his purpose of making the female lead realize who she truly loves, will be quietly written out of the story, becoming nothing more than a faint, annoying memory. I look at the beautiful face now twisted with rage, and I feel absolutely nothing. You're lying. Leo, don't you remember you came back to see me once before your trip? It happened that night. Jess is still scrambling for an excuse. I don't even bother arguing. I know the police will make her explain everything. How could you do this to me? Seeing that I'm unmoved, she switches back to her damsel in distress act, tears streaming down her face like a broken faucet. I know you're mad that I left without saying anything, but I didn't have a choice. I was taken by someone. She chokes on a sob, as if the story is too painful to tell. Here it comes, the classic I was forced by the powerful so storyline. Just say it, girl. Tell him you were drugged, and it wasn't your fault. Dude, have a heart. She didn't mean for it to happen. The comment stream is going wild. I just want to laugh. If I hadn't shown up, the original Leo would probably be holding her and the baby in his arms right now, vowing to protect them for the rest of his life. Too bad for her. I'm not that kind of idiot. Just then, the doorbell rings. 2 uniformed police officers are standing in the hallway. Who called 911? I did, I say, stepping aside to give them a clear view of Jess, pale and trembling, clutching the infant. Chapter 2, the arrival of the police shatters any hope Jess had. She holds the baby, her body shaking like a leaf in the wind. Officers, it's a misunderstanding. All a big misunderstanding. She stammers. This was just a joke between me and my boyfriend. The lead officer, a man with years of experience in his eyes, glances from me to her, his gaze finally landing on the baby. A joke? Ma'am, child abandonment isn't a joke. It's a felony. Jess's lips tremble, but she can't form a single word. I calmly recount the events, my relationship with Jess, the timeline of my work trip, and her sudden appearance today demanding I raise a child that isn't mine. I did not. Jess shrieks. Leo, you're slandering me. This is your child. I was just testing you to see if you really loved me. She's practically hysterical, trying to paint me as the villain. The younger officer frowns, looking at me. Sir, are you certain you have no biological relation to this child? I am 100% certain. I say without hesitation. If necessary, I am willing to take a paternity test at any time. But before that, I believe Ms. Miller's actions constitute attempted child abandonment. She knew I wasn't the father, yet she tried to force the responsibility of raising him onto me. When I refused, I had every reason to believe she would simply dump the baby somewhere. That's the truth, isn't it? If I had said no, what would she have done? Left the baby at a hospital? On the steps of a fire station? Either way, it's abandonment. The lead officer clearly comes to the same conclusion, and his expression hardens. Ms. Miller, I'm going to have to ask you to come down to the station with us to answer some questions. As for the baby, we'll have Child Protective Services place him in temporary foster care. No, don't. Jess finally breaks down, clinging to the baby. You can't take my son. Leo, help me. Tell them we were just joking. Please, I'm begging you. She turns to me, her eyes filled with desperation and terror. OMG, the drama. Dude, you gotta feel bad for her now. She's begging you, man. Are you really that heartless? So what if it's not yours? Man up and be the bigger person. I almost laugh out loud at the ridiculous comments. I walk over to Jess and look down at her. You're begging me, Jess? You're begging me to clean up the mess you made. The second you showed up at my door with another man's child, trying to make me the fool, we were done. It's over. My words extinguish her last glimmer of hope. She slumps in defeat and is escorted out of the apartment by the police. I let out a long breath. Screw her drama. Screw being the supportive side character. I've got my own life to live. Why should I be a stepping stone in someone else's story? My phone buzzes. It's Jess's mother, Sharon. I decline the call and block the number. But a few minutes later, a thunderous pounding rattles my front door. Now, you ungrateful bastard. You open this door right now. What have you done with my daughter? I walk to the door, peer through the peephole, and see Sharon and Jess's father, Robert Miller, their faces red with fury. I take out my phone, start a voice recording, and open the door. Chapter 3, Leo. You son of a bitch. What did you take, Jess? The moment the door opens, Sharon tries to charge in, her hand swinging at my face. I was expecting it. I take a step back and easily dodge the slap. She stumbles forward, caught by her husband before she can fall. Mrs. Miller, let's use our words. Getting physical isn't going to solve anything, I say, holding up my phone so they can clearly see the recording in progress. Sharon freezes. Robert's expression darkens. Leo, what is the meaning of this? Robert asks, his tone hostile as he steadies his wife. Where is Jess? At the police station, I say, leaning against the doorframe. She's being investigated for felony child abandonment. What? They exclaim in unison, their faces a mask of shock. Sharon's voice immediately rises to a screech. You're lying. That baby is yours. How could it be abandonment? You're defaming her. I'm going to sue you. Whether it's mine or not is something a paternity test will clear up very quickly. I say, finding their terrible acting almost amusing. Mr. and Mrs. Miller, don't tell me you two also thought that baby was mine? Robert and Sharon exchange a nervous glance. So what if you were mistaken? Robert says, adopting a patronizing tone. Jess is young. She made a mistake. It happens. You're the man here. You can't hold it against her. Get down to the station right now. Clear this whole thing up and bring Jess home. That's right. Go now, or you'll have to answer to us. Sharon chimes in. Looking at this pair, I finally understand. Jess's selfishness was learned at home. I can't do that, I say, shaking my head. I'm the one who filed a report. If I go back on my story now, that's filing a false police report. You, Sharon points a trembling finger at me. You ungrateful brat. If it weren't for our Jess choosing you, what would you be right now? My daughter being with you was the luckiest day of your life. And now you dare to do this to her. Oh, really? The corner of my mouth curls up because I remember things differently. I remember pursuing Jess for 2 years. And when she finally said yes, you two couldn't stop complaining that my family didn't have money, and you never missed a chance to look down on me. As for Lucky, I pause, my gaze sweeping over their panicked faces, raising another man's child, throwing away my own future, and ending up with nothing. If that's your idea of good fortune, you can have it. You know, Robert's face finally changes. Know what? That the baby isn't mine? Or that your whole family had a plan to use me as a free babysitter until the time was right to go shake down the real father for a payday. My words hit them like a thunderclap. The blood drains from their faces. They never imagined I knew the whole story. Don't you dare say such things. Sharon stammers, still trying to deny it. Am I lying? You know the truth, I say, holding up my phone. I recorded this entire conversation. What do you think the police will say when I hand this over to them? They both stop breathing, their eyes fixed on my phone in terror. Leo, what do you want? Robert finally caves, his voice trembling. I don't want anything, I say, putting my phone away, my expression cold. I just want to live my life. From now on, stay away from me. What happens to Jess is her own damn fault. If you want to keep making a scene, I have no problem making this even bigger. We can let everyone see what kind of people you really are. With that, I slam the door in their faces. I thought that would be the end of it for a while. But half an hour later, I get a call from an unknown number. The voice on the other end is a young man's, dripping with arrogance. Is this Leo Vance? It is. I'm Connor Sterling's attorney. I'd like to discuss the matter of Jessica Miller and the child. Connor Sterling, the name I'd only seen in the comic stream. The novel's true male lead. The baby's father. He finally decided to show up. Chapter 4. Discuss what? It's very simple. The lawyer says, his voice flat and robotic. We will transfer a sum of money to you. $500,000. In return, you will go to the police, withdraw your complaint, and publicly state that the child is yours. That you and Ms. Miller simply had a lover's quarrel. $500,000. He's certainly not cheap. Here it is. The billionaire's money bomb. $500,000. That's like what? 5-year salary for a regular programmer. Take the money and run, dude. Get out of there. You'd be set. The comment stream is back with more terrible advice. And if I say no, I ask, a small smile on my face. The lawyer seems taken aback by my refusal. He pauses, and when he speaks again, his voice has a slight edge of menace. Mr. Vance, you're a smart man. You should know which choice is in your best interest. Mr. Sterling's influence is not something you can comprehend. Opposing him will do you no good. Is that so? I reply, because from where I'm standing, opposing him sounds like a lot of fun. You, tell your boss. I interrupt. If you want to solve a problem, he can come see me himself. Sending his attack dog just shows he doesn't take this seriously. I hang up. Sorry, but threats don't work on me. I open my laptop and log into an old, encrypted email account. This is where the original Leo kept all his secrets. That's right, the original guy wasn't as simple as he appeared. He was a highly skilled white hat hacker. He didn't get his job at one of the top tech firms in the country because of his degree. He got it because he once breached their firewall, submitted a report with over 100 security vulnerabilities, and was recruited by the CTO on the spot. No one knew about this except the CTO, and his investigation into Connor Sterling wasn't a coincidence. Deep in the original Leo's memories is a fragmented image. His parents died in a construction site collapse. The developer for that project was a company owned by Connor Sterling's father, the predecessor to the modern-day Sterling Corporation. The incident was ruled an accident, and the developer paid a settlement to make it go away. But the original Leo always suspected foul play. For years, while working his day job, he used his skills to secretly investigate the Sterling Corporation. He had already found some leads. The Sterling Corporation's early history was filled with shady deals and cut corners. That accident years ago was likely no accident at all, but a man-made disaster caused by using substandard materials to save money. But before he could find the smoking gun, the drama with Jess threw his life into chaos, and he ultimately died of a broken heart, which is where I came in. I look at the scattered files and clues in the inbox, and my eyes turn to ice. Connor Sterling, Jess Miller. Looks like we have a score to settle. I reorganized the data Leo collected, packaged it anonymously, and sent it to one person. Victoria Hayes, CEO of Apex Industries, the Sterling Corporation's biggest rival. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. I have a feeling the famously ruthless CEO would be very interested in the gift I just sent her. After that, I opened my browser. As expected, Robert and Sharon Miller hadn't given up. They had spammed my company's internal Slack, my university's alumni Facebook group, and several Reddit programming communities I frequented. The headlines were pure clickbait. Shocking. Seattle tech programmer Leo Vance abandons newborn child and fiancé. Disgrace to MIT. Former star student revealed as heartless deadbeat. In the posts, they painted me as a manipulative monster who plays with women's emotions. They portrayed themselves and Jess as the poor, innocent victims. They even included a photo of Jess, tears streaming down her face as she clutched the baby. The internet, of course, went wild. Colleagues, fellow alumni, and random strangers who didn't know the first thing about the situation began tearing me apart. I can't believe Leo is that kind of person. I totally misjudged him. This is disgusting. He should be fired immediately. Someone find this guy's address. Dox him. Make his life a living hell. The comments were a cesspool of filth. Soon enough, my company's HR department called. They told me I was being placed on temporary leave pending an internal investigation. I agreed calmly. I knew this was just Connor Sterling's opening move. The real storm was yet to come. Chapter 5, the storm hit faster than I expected. The next morning, my landlord called, telling me in no uncertain terms that I had 3 days to move out, or he'd have my stuff thrown on the street. When I asked why, he stammered for a bit before snapping. Look, you pissed off someone important. I can't have you bringing that kind of trouble here. Right after that, I discovered my bank accounts were frozen. All my credit cards and payment apps were declined. I was now a broke, soon-to-be homeless, and publicly shamed outcast. Sterling's methods were simple, brutal, and effective. It's over. The protagonist is cornered. The CEO's power is insane. How can he possibly fight back? Just get out of town, Leo. Live to fight another day. The comment stream was in full panic mode, but I was perfectly calm. I still had a few $100s in cash, enough to last a few days. I grabbed my backpack, which held my most important asset, my laptop. Then, I headed to the biggest 24-hour internet cafe in the city. The screen flickered to life, its blue glow illuminating my face. You think this can stop me, Connor? You seriously underestimate what a top-tier hacker can do. First, I needed money. I logged into several overseas crypto exchanges. Using a few zero-day exploits I discovered in the past, I executed a series of lightning-fast, high-frequency trades. The money moved through dozens of anonymous wallets, erasing every trace. 30 minutes later, an untraceable offshore account under my control was richer by $200,000. It was more than enough to handle my current crisis and fund the next phase of my plan. With my finances secure, it was time to fight back. I started by hacking into Robert and Sharon Miller's phones. These two were a goldmine. Their text messages laid out the entire scheme. How to use Jess to get close to a man like Connor Sterling, how to trick me into being the fall guy, and how, once the child was a little older, they would use him to demand an exorbitant amount of child support from the CEO. They had even discussed which mansions to buy and what luxury cars to get once the money came through. The best part was a text exchange between Sharon and one of her friends from her bridge club. She bragged about how clever her daughter was, having 2 men wrapped around her finger. She openly mocked me, calling me an idiot who was being played for a fool. That Leo is a total blockhead, one text read. All he knows is how to type that stupid code. Jess tells him to jump, and he asks how high. He'll probably thank us for letting him raise the baby. Another one said, as soon as we get the money from Mr. Sterling, we'll kick him to the curb. He'll just be in the way. I compiled all of these text messages, screenshots of their social media posts slandering me, and sent the entire package as a direct message to every single person who had insulted me online. Chapter 6: The Internet moves at the speed of light. In less than an hour, the entire narrative had flipped. The same people who had been calling for my head were now champions of justice, directing their fury at the Miller family. Holy SD, what a twist. We were all used. This family is disgusting. They're absolute parasites. I feel so bad for Leo. They scammed him, cheated on him, and almost made him a cuckold. Fire Jessica Miller. People like Sharon and Robert Miller belong in jail. My former company's Slack and the alumni Facebook group exploded. Robert and Sharon's phones were bombarded with angry calls and texts. Their home address and workplaces were doxed and posted online. Someone even threw paint on the front door, scrawling scammers and liars on the walls. The HR manager from my company called again, her tone completely different. She offered a sincere apology, informed me that the suspension had been lifted, and begged me to come back to work. I said no. Do me a favor and pass a message to the CTO. I told her. Tell him that if Connor Sterling wants to play, I'll play. Also, my resignation letter is on its way to your inbox. As much as I like that company, it was a place where Sterling could easily exert his influence. I don't like having a leash around my neck. After I hung up, I received an email from Victoria Hayes. It contained only 2 words. Let's meet. Below was an address and time. I knew my opening move had worked. I went to the address, a discreet, members-only club downtown. In a private room, a woman in a sharp, black power suit was sipping tea. She looked to be in her early 30s, with refined features, a commanding presence, and eyes that could cut through steel. This was Victoria Hayes. "Mr. Vance, please have a seat," she said, gesturing to the chair across from her. I sat down without ceremony. "I've reviewed the materials you sent," Victoria said, getting straight to the point. "Very interesting, but it's not enough." I know, I nodded. That was just the appetizer. "Oh," she raised an eyebrow, a flicker of genuine interest in her eyes. "Then what is it that you want?" "I want the Sterling Corporation," I said, meeting her gaze directly. "I want to see him ruined, disgraced, and left with nothing." Victoria's expression didn't change, but I saw a new light in her eyes. She probably never expected a seemingly ordinary programmer to have such ambition. "You talk a big game," she said with a faint smile. "What makes you think you can pull it off?" "Because I can get my hands on things you can't." I turned my laptop toward her. On the screen was the back end of the Sterling Corporation's internal financial system. Rows upon rows of data, clearly showing years of tax evasion, fraudulent accounting, and illegal offshore accounts. Victoria's pupils constricted. She stared at the screen, her breathing becoming just a little faster. She had been fighting Connor Sterling for years, spending millions trying to find a weakness, and had never gotten close to this kind of core evidence. I had done it in less than a day. "Who are you?" "Really?" she asked, her eyes searching mine, filled with a new level of scrutiny. "I'm a son who wants revenge for his parents," I said, calmly closing the laptop. The original Leo's parents died because the Sterling Corporation cut corners on a construction project. Now that I'm in this body, their debt is my debt, and I always pay my debts. Victoria was silent for a long moment. When she finally spoke again, her voice was laced with gravitas. "What do you need from me?" "A secure location to work from and access to certain resources. I'll handle the rest." "Done," Victoria said, standing and extending her hand. "Pleasure doing business with you." "Likewise." Chapter 7: Jess Miller was charged and held in custody. With concrete evidence of attempted abandonment and a massive public pressure, there was no chance of her getting bail. Robert and Sharon Miller were also arrested and investigated for fraud and conspiracy. Their public slander and online harassment campaign added defamation to the list of charges. The law was coming for them, and it wouldn't be gentle. And the man behind it all, Connor Sterling, was finally out of moves. He had his lawyer contact me again. This time, the offer was $10 million. I let Victoria's legal team handle it. Faced with indisputable evidence, Sterling's desperate attempts were useless. Victoria used the financial data I provided to file official reports with the IRS and the SEC. At the same time, she leveraged Apex Industries' full might to launch an all-out assault on the Sterling Corporation in the stock market. Sterling's stock price plummeted. Negative press began surfacing everywhere. Suppliers demanded payment, banks called in their loans, and business partners terminated their contracts. The once mighty corporate empire began to crumble in a matter of days. Connor Sterling was in a panic, calling in every favor he had, only to find every door shut in his face. When you're falling, everyone wants to give you a push. The same people who once flattered him now wouldn't even take his calls. He finally realized he had picked a fight with the wrong person. He called me himself. For the first time, his voice held a note of desperation. Now, we need to meet. Fine. It was time to end this. We met at the same private club as before. Only this time, the roles were reversed. Sterling looked like a ghost. His eyes were sunken, and a rough stubble covered his jaw. The arrogant, untouchable CEO was gone. Just tell me what you want, he said, his voice hoarse. What I want? I think you know, I said, pouring him a cup of tea. Is it worth all this? Just for a woman? He stared at me, his eyes burning. You can have Jessica. I'll give you more money. Just call this off. Leave my company alone. I laughed. Connor, do you really still think any of this was about Jess? What else could it be? Do you remember a construction site collapse 15 years ago? South side of the city, I asked slowly, watching him. The color drained from his face. For the first time, I saw genuine fear in those arrogant eyes. 2 people died in that accident. My voice was quiet, but each word landed like a hammer blow. They were my parents. You're. He pointed at me, his lips trembling, unable to finish the sentence. That's right, I said, standing up to look down on him, just as he had once looked down on the world. I'm the son of the victims you paid off with a few $100,000 and forgot about. You thought you covered your tracks? You thought time would bear your sins. I'm here to tell you, Connor, what goes around comes around. You and your father built your empire on blood and lies. Today, you're going to pay back that debt. With interest. My words were the final straw. Connor Sterling collapsed back into his chair, his face ashen. He knew it was over. Chapter 8, the rest, was just a formality. Connor Sterling and his father were found guilty of numerous crimes, from manslaughter for the construction accident to massive financial fraud. They were sentenced to life in prison. The Sterling Corporation went bankrupt. Victoria's Apex Industries acquired most of its valuable assets. Jess Miller was convicted of child abandonment and defamation and sentenced to 3 years in prison. Robert and Sharon Miller also faced the consequences of their fraud and slander, receiving their own prison sentences. The storm that had consumed my life for the past few weeks was finally over. Using the settlement money from the Sterling lawsuit and the bonus Victoria gave me, I bought a large penthouse apartment downtown. Standing at the floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out at the endless stream of city lights, the whole experience felt surreal. Victoria came to stand beside me, handing me a glass of red wine. So what's next for you? She asked. A vacation, I said. Then maybe I'll start my own cybersecurity firm. Have you ever considered a position at Apex? She offered. The CTO role is yours if you want it. I smiled and shook my head. I think I prefer being my own boss. Fair enough, she said, not pressing the issue. She raised her glass. Well, either way, congratulations. To you as well, I said, clinking my glass against hers. We smiled at each other. Nothing more needed to be said. After tying up all the loose ends, I found myself doing something unexpected. I drove to the city's foster care facility. Through a pane of glass in the nursery, I saw the baby. He was sleeping peacefully in the arms of a caregiver. He was innocent in all of this. He didn't deserve to pay for his parents' mistakes. But I couldn't bring myself to feel anything for him. I'm no saint. I can't love the child of the man who killed my parents. Instead, I made a large, anonymous donation to the facility, with the funds specifically earmarked for improving the living conditions and educational resources for all the children there. It was, in a way, a final closing chapter on the original Leo's misguided love, a period at the end of a sentence. As I left the building, the sun was bright. I pulled out my phone, and for the first time in a while, I noticed a few new comments scrolling faintly across my vision. Holy crap, the ultimate comeback story. This is how protagonists should act. No efectiveness, no hosetaschen. All brains and brutal efficiency. Imafan. So, did he get together with the hot CEO at the end? I smiled and put my phone away. My new life was just beginning. As for romance, I'll see where life takes me.